Hey everyone, serious time here. Um, you might have heard that in Wisconsin, some 12-year-old kids stabbed another 12-year-old because they wanted to summon the Slender Man. Barring the whole that's not exactly how the mythos works, yeah, this is pretty fucking bad. I'm not saying creepypasta was the cause of this. Polar opposite. A lot of the narrators in the creepypasta community are pretty much going, what the fuck? You do know this is all fake, right? Um, and, I didn't really comment on it for a while because I kind of just didn't really feel I needed to, but something in me is telling me just to say something to bring it to light. And it is first. By the way, the victim is in stable condition from what I last heard, so she should be able to recover, which is a good thing. She didn't die, but I'm going to be flat, and a lot of other people have said this, and I am too, that if you blame a media for your own actions, it's one of two things. You are either lying through your fucking teeth and you're just looking for a scapegoat and you know what the media will latch onto and you will look sympathetic, which is dastardly wrong and, let's face it, a real douchey thing to do. Or you are very, very, very mentally ill and cannot distinguish fantasy from reality, and you need help. And there are facilities to help you. The one saving grace of this is that a gun wasn't involved, so we're not going to get the gun lobbyists diving in here and screaming about how, gun. We're not going to get the gun debate in this, which is probably a relief, because that's going to take away from the real issue. Which is now there probably are some people out there who think creepypastas cause violence. I'm sure there were some in the past, but now it's going to be kind of snowballing. I just get this bad feeling no matter how much people say, hold it, the rest of us don't even think like that. We know it's fake, it's all for fun. There are going to be people who basically go completely insane about it. I mean, they did it with video games for years and years and years and years. They did it with comic books. They did it with television shows. They did it with movies. What's going to change it with this? They did it with books. They still do it with books in some countries. For those that don't know, I probably should explain this. Creepypasta, in and of itself, is a subgenre of horror. Think campfire stories evolved into the internet. That's pretty much what they are. They all give these fancy explanations about where it came from. They're like, no, they're fucking campfire stories that evolved onto the internet. Let's get that straight right now. They've been told, some of these have been told for myriads of years in different forms, and the internet just allowed them to spread more. So the term copy paste got morphed into copypasta, a story pasted onto the internet. And when they were scary, people probably started saying, ooh, that's a creepypasta. It's probably a bad joke, and it just kind of stuck. That's probably what happened. And to this day, people write and tell these stories. Sometimes you know the author, sometimes you don't. Slender Man is kind of an offshoot of it. He started as a submission to a contest on the Something Awful forums for creepy photograph manipulation, essentially. I think that's where he came from. And people started making up stories about him, because he was a weird character. I actually don't find him that interesting personally, but whatever. But the Slender mythos is he targets children, so, the Adrian was right in this. All this stupid stuff. And he gets creatures known as proxies, humans that he enslaves sometimes, and they go a little insane, but again, if you want more details on that, there's stuff like Marble Hornets and Tribe 12 and stuff like that probably explains it better. Well, at least shows it better than what I'm talking about. That being said, the the point of what I'm talking about is you can't blame scary stories for this or any other form of media. I'm not going to give the usual reasons I kind of did at the beginning, but the reason I'm going to say this is, okay, maybe these two girls really did it because of a creepypasta. How many hundreds of thousands of millions of people read this stuff every day and not do that? Cause and effect here, causation doesn't equal correlation here, I know, but just weighing it out, most people I know that like scary stories tend to lean toward the non-violent end of the spectrum, not this. And for all we know, this could be an elaborate ploy, and these girls just hated this one girl for whatever stupid reason and decided, oh, we'll stab her and we'll blame creepypastas because waffles. For all we know, the girl that got stabbed might have loved creepypastas. We don't know anything about this girl. At least I don't. I kind of want to, before I even make judgments on what the real motivation is, I'm just, talking about the hypothetical one here. I would love to hear from the victim if she ever, decides to speak, and I kind of hope she does, because I have this fascination with, if a crime is committed and the victim is alive, I want to hear from them, too, to get their point of view, as kind of a contrast to what the other people are saying, because she might shed some light on some things, too, like maybe she'll say, oh, yeah, those two girls always picked on me. So that could just oh, fuck, they were probably planning this, or, I didn't know these girls, it would indicate they picked her at random and were insane. I mean, clearly they planned this out either way. If they are saying they did it to become a proxy to Slenderman, meaning they were planning a ritual, which means they did still plan it out. Which could get them in big trouble, and yeah, they're 12 years old, but they still need to pay the piper a little bit. I'm very ambivalent on, what their punishment should be. Yeah, and I'm glad the victim is doing better. She'll probably make a full recovery, hopefully, which is good. Hopefully, she doesn't hate creepypastas forever. In fact, if she's listening, everyone else in the community is actually pulling for you. And, we know it's fiction. It's just creativity. It's just insanity. It's a silly little thing we do for fun to blow off steam. Kind of like how people play video games to blow off steam. People have made this point, people blamed video games for violence for years, even though the stuff that they blamed was questionable, except maybe Mortal Kombat, and even then, not many people were pulling a fatality. They were, and even with, I think part of the problem is why people blame a media source rather than, looking into the real issue, is because the real issue is much harder to curtail. What I mean is that, not even talking about gun laws here. To fix the real issue, you have to go to the very root. You have to teach these kids very, very, very young that this kind of thing is never okay. You do not do this stuff, and you have to teach them the difference between fantasy and reality, but it's okay to embrace both, so long as you do it responsibly. No, you can't actually shoot somebody because they're a bad guy. You deal with it in a proper way in the real world because there are real consequences to shooting that person. While in fantasy, yes, it's okay because it's temporary. It's just writing. It's just pixels. It's just your imagination, and you can reset all that. You can't reset the real world. You never could. You need to teach kids that at the very, very root, or they're never going to get it. Combine that with, you have to teach them Skin color means nothing. Sexuality means nothing. Gender means nothing. Physical looks mean nothing when it comes to a personality, when it comes to if a person can be your friend or not. You need to judge by their actions and how they treat you. And that has to be at the very, very root. And that second one is more complicated because there are parents out there that are still teaching their kids this intolerance. And it is getting ingrained. And there's a picture online of an African-American cop standing there with a riot shield for a protest with the KKK, because they have the right to assemble, but people do get violent with them, and they're not really supposed to because they're still human beings. So, and I just get the funny feeling they sent all the black cops to that just to be ironic. But the picture is, this black cop is standing there, and this little baby in a KK outfit, like a little, like, probably 2 since it's walking, is walking up and touching the shield. This kid is being taught that the big man with the shield is bad just because of his skin color at 2. Probably earlier than that. That's how ingrained this stuff can get. You know, and there are women that are taught you have to be this uber nasty fucking bitch. I'm not talking being strong and independent. I'm talking you don't take shit from anyone even when they're right if they're male. That does exist, like it or not. And they're being taught this at the very root as compensation for the other thing, which is being taught they have to be subservient to men. That's being taught at the very root. Or they're being taught that as long as you're the queen bee, it's fine. At the very root, all of these things are being taught at the root. These really bad things of greed, of prejudice. And it's very hard to circumvent it because the parents have more access than anyone else to these kids. Or the guardians have more access to anyone else, to these kids, than anyone else. And if these kids are being taught at home these bad things, it may influence things later on. And by then it may end up being too late and something like this will happen. And of course then there's also the question of mental illness. Not every mental illness, not every neurological disorder is visible. Schizophrenia doesn't show up that easily. I had an old family friend who, my mom had to tell me he was schizophrenic. I didn't know. Because he took his meds, but I didn't know. I had people who... Interrupted by the aim. I've known people that have had ADD, ADHD, that have had this, that, and the other thing. You don't know right off the bat. Something either has to set them off, or it has to be so bad that they need to be locked away. And people do not understand this. Mental illness is a very invisible, very insidious little thing. And at times even parents aren't going to see it. And as you can see, the root of the problem is very, very, very hard to deal with. It's like dealing with bamboo or any other kind of weed. And apparently bamboo is classified as a weed/grass. It's very hard to deal with. But something like a video game or something like creepypasta is easy to deal with. Easy to ban. Easy to get rid of. It's easy to ban your kid from reading books. It's easy to monitor that stuff. It's easy to make the government do it. So, yeah. Guess what people are going to go for? People don't go for the actual solution instinctively. They go for the easy one, hoping it sticks. And it doesn't. Like, I'll give a less recent example. During the time when they were blaming video games, late into it, the Virginia Tech murders happened. Virginia Tech was initially blamed on video games. Until they discovered that this guy didn't play video games at all. Or if he did, I think it was like Pac-Man or something, which, Okay? Meaning they didn't have that scapegoat. He did it because he was nuts. And more recently, with the shootings done by, I'm just going to call him ER. I don't want to say his real name because it's already been plastered all over the place, and I might as well talk about him too. This misogynistic little piece of shit who, even though he never put himself out there, and even though he had a great life that I would have killed for, he was mad because women wouldn't date him. He never asked them out, but he was mad that they wouldn't just, followed his feet or something. Honestly, with that attitude, I don't think women would have dated him because they probably would have smacked him and told him to fuck off, but, that's besides the point. And he shot a bunch of people and then killed himself. A bunch of women that he didn't even ever meet. There was something severely wrong. And from what I've read about him, his parents did try to help him. They did try. He just didn't want it. And that's the other complication. Sometimes when you do offer this help, they're not going to want it. They don't care. They don't see it. Or they think they're right and they're that stubborn. When it gets to that point, you're kind of stuck. These are not issues that are easily solved. You can say whatever you want. This should be banned. This should be curtailed. This should be monitored. And yeah, you should be careful what entertainment you feed your kids, because some of it is just shitty anyway. So, I do believe in parental involvement with, kids and their entertainment, be it video games, TV, movies, whatever. I'm not really banning it, just, knowing what your kid can handle. Like, I really wouldn't recommend reading Slender Man to a 5-year-old for a bedtime story unless they're really that into creepypastas or you're that sadistic. One of the two. But it's just not right to fully blame media for this, because media influence only goes so far. I mean, yeah, some people do get influenced by it, and let's face it, they're probably easily influenced. But there's more to it than that. The roots go down very, very deep, and if you don't get them very, very early, you've got a problem. And unfortunately, it's usually very hard to get through things very, very early because sometimes the signs don't show, or sometimes you're so ingrained in it, you don't notice it. It takes a lot of introspection, a lot of outrospection, a lot of outside influences, a lot of inside influence just to fix this problem. And there's no simple answer. There's never been a simple answer to all this. There will never be a simple answer to all this. We may never solve this problem. There, I said it. This problem is fucking unsolvable because of the elements actually involved. You can't control anger. You can't control mental illness. You can't control how these kids are raised and how their parents raise them. You can't control any of this on a government scale because it's fucking impossible to control. Because you would need to be in such a totalitarian state that nobody can breathe without being shot. And nobody ever wants that, because that puts everybody under scrutiny and everyone on edge, and something will explode then too. It is not the weapons. It is not the media. It is not the one parent. It is not the school system. It is everything at once. It is stuff internal, external, and you can't control it. But what you can do is be aware of the deepest roots and try to fix them. If we can eliminate prejudice against everything. Or at the very least, make it so it's understood that the intolerance that is associated with it is so fucking stupid and so fucking laughed at that most people wouldn't do it, that it becomes a red flag when it happens. Or even better, just teach kids not to be assholes. It's not hard. I know I'm saying it's an impossible solution, but teaching kids not to be assholes is pretty easy. Like, I hear stories about parents who will not supervise their kids in a store. No, don't do that. One, it's dangerous, and two, your kid ends up being a little asshole. And people wonder why I'm so nice 99% of the time. Like, I am extraordinarily polite, nice. I will call people out saying, yeah, you shouldn't do that because you might offend somebody. I'm not easily offended, but I will warn of offensiveness. And people wonder why, and they're like, oh, you're too nice, you're being too PC. No, I'm just not being a dick. There's a reason for this. I've noticed that if you are nice, you don't finish last. And I mean genuinely nice, expecting no reward. You're nice because it feels good, and it actually works for you, and it keeps you from getting hurt. When you're mean, it doesn't usually end well after a while. Because my parents taught me that. I'm not talking like general manners here. I'm talking actually being a nice person. Helping people. Not really like, talking to someone before you judge them. That's not a hard thing to teach your kid. The answers aren't always easy, but the few easy ones I can give, I'll happily give. Just tell your kid, okay, look. Color of this doesn't matter. Your gender doesn't really matter. Your hair color doesn't matter. Your voice, your ability level, who you want to marry, how many people you want to marry, none of that matters. It's all skin deep. What matters is how nice a person they are. How they treat you. Are they good people? So don't be mean to little Jimmy and little Bobby, okay? Just say that. Teach your kid that. If you're worried about the entertainment, don't just ban it completely. Share with them. See what they're playing. See what they're watching. And don't freak out if your little boy is watching a girl's show or if your little girl's watching a boy's show. Watch it with them and see why they like it. They might like it for a reason you didn't even think. It's not hard. And for those that just don't like kids at all, okay, at least you're honest. You're the ones I'm least worried about in this equation because you're not having kids, but be sure to call out stupid shit if you see it, if parents are doing it. Do me a favor, because at least then somebody who knows how to deal with kids better, who doesn't like or have kids, will probably embarrass them enough that maybe they will change. Just a weird, stupid-ass thought. Unless it'll put you in danger, then don't do it. Don't get yourself killed for this. I think it just bothers me that we go for the easy blame when there's really nothing to truly blame. We just have to figure it out. Because, well, I was always taught there's never an easy answer to things. You have to work hard to fix things. And I think it always bothers me that it really feels like nobody has quite gotten that solution. Like, I understand inventing tech to make things easier. That's fine. I'm talking like just going for the cop-out answer instead of going for the real problem. My parents taught me to go for the real problem, as soon as possible. I'm really not sure how to... Okay. I got it. Say you live in an old house in a moist environment. And this is running from personal experience. Now, you always get these weird black blotches behind your mirror. So, you clean behind the mirror and the blotches come back after you clean them. So there's something causing them that you don't know. You check to see if it's the mirror. it's not, because you move the mirror and this wall's not getting him. So you go to the... So later on, you go to someone and you have them check behind the wall. Maybe there's something in the wall or something in the paint. You have black mold, the root of the problem. It's expensive to get rid of. You end up not being in half your house for a few months, and it's a pain in the ass. But you gotta get rid of it, or it's gonna cause another myriad of problems that are more severe than a little black smudge. The root of the problem. Or think of weeding. What do they tell you? Get it at the root. Otherwise, it's going to keep growing, keep spreading. And nobody wants to get it at the root. Most people just pull it out because it's easier. It takes less time. It uses less chemicals. But they grow right back, and sometimes in more numbers. And sometimes you can't get to the root because it's in a weird spot. And that's kind of where the root of these problems are. They're in weird spots. This is kind of rambling, and I apologize. Another reason why I brought up the ER case, by the way, is to kind of give an example of how sometimes it's not just parenting. Because from what I've read, I mean, he actually said that he hated his mother's boyfriends because they weren't rich. They could have been the nicest guys in the world, but he wanted them to be rich. He didn't care about his own mother's well-being, alright? He actually said this. In fact, he does have like a YouTube manifesto he wrote while driving. Real smart there, Buster. I'm surprised you didn't die that way. So yeah, this little guy was kind of an asshole. It wasn't anything his mother did. He was just not right in the head. People are saying he had Asperger's or something. Like, I don't even think it's that. There was something else very wrong. I'm thinking he was a bit of a sociopath. Or a narcissist at the very least. And it just grew out of control and nobody knew how to stop it. And that's the other thing I should point out. Some neurological and mental disorders are kind of hard to control. Narcissism happens to be one of them, so be sociopathy and psychopathy. Most are high functioning and can not murder people. No problem. They know better. But there's that few that don't give a shit. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on the whole thing. Kind of on shootings like this in general. It's just... Basically, it's just one of those issues that doesn't have one simple solution. We need more than one. But people don't want the actual solution. They want easy answers. And you know what that means. So, keep strong, guys. Maybe we'll find the root of the problem of people looking for the easy fucking scapegoat. Because that one I'm confused on, too.